Hello, this is Justin from the Tech Train here again, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how you can create your own calculator in Microsoft Word. You'll see on the top right corner I have this utilities section with a percentage calculator, and if I click on that, here is a percentage calculator right within Word. So if I'm writing a document and I want to explain how a particular number has gone up by a certain percentage, I don't have to worry about zipping off to get a calculator or opening up Excel or looking online for a percentage calculator. I can do it right here in Microsoft Word. So what is 23% of 85? Calculate it, and there we are, 19.55. So I'm going to show you how to create this calculator to work out percentages within Microsoft Word in just a second. If, like me, you've often been writing a document and then found yourself needing to explain how a particular grade has gone up or down, or what such and such is as a percentage of something else, it gets quite frustrating if you don't have a calculator to hand. So I tend to zip off to a website and work it out on there perhaps. But this calculator here at the top right corner, which is always visible on this home tab, this calculator is working right within Word, so I can really quickly and easily work out a percentage, copy and paste it directly into my document. So if, for example, a student was on 63% and they've risen to 76%, straight away I can tell that's a 20.6 increase in their percentage, in their grade. If I wanted to know what 15% of 70 is, I can work out that as 21.428. And of course, what is 14% of 23? It's 3.22, of course. So how does this calculator work and how do we build it? Well, the answer is that we're going to produce it ourselves. It's not an add-in, we're writing it ourselves. And through this tutorial, you'll work out, first of all, how to create your own utilities and add-ons, and then get them built right into the ribbon at the top of your screen. So how do we do this? Let's start from scratch. The first thing that we'll need is the developer toolbar. Now, you may not have this toolbar visible, but it will be within Microsoft Word. So if it's not there, how do you get it? Well, what you need to do is find a blank area somewhere on the ribbon, right click and choose Customize the ribbon. This brings up this screen, and you'll want to look at this right hand side here. You'll find as you scroll down, you'll see developer there, and if it's unticked, then that means it's not visible. So you'll want to click the tick next to developer so that you have the developer toolbar visible. And the next thing we're going to do is click on Visual Basic on the left hand side. So click on Visual Basic. This opens up a second window. Might look a little scary at first, but don't worry too much, it's all pretty straightforward. On the left hand side, you've got these two categories. I've just clicked on the minuses to compress them, to reduce them. And the two categories are the project for document 2. That means that whatever I create is only available within this document, which is fine if you're creating an add-on that will work out the score for a quiz that's based within this one document. But if you want this to be available to any future document that you produce in Microsoft Word, in other words, whenever you open up Microsoft Word to create any kind of document, you want this to be visible in all those future documents as well, then we need to click on Normal. This is the normal template, which opens when you run Microsoft Word. So click on Normal first of all, and then if you right click on it, you'll get this menu where we can insert a user form. So click on that, and this brings up this window where you have basically a little form. This is the form that you saw appear on the screen earlier with all the questions in. Now, I'm not going to recreate the entire form again because that's probably going to be too much. You might not necessarily want all that, but once I do one little part, you'll be able to work it out quite easily yourself. And if you don't, then just leave me a comment below and I'll be more than happy to help. So let's do this percentage calculator then, just to work out what such and such percent of something is. So what is 10% of 100, for example? So first of all, what we're going to do is change the title at the top. You'll see it currently says user form 1. On the left hand side, this list here is all the properties of this form. By properties we mean so characteristics, so things like the colour, the style, the shape, the kind of font that's on there, and the title at the top. So what we're going to do is come down to where it says caption, which is the word they use here for title. Currently it says user form 1. I'm going to change that to percentage calculator, like that. And you'll see that now that appears at the top of our form here. You'll also notice that the bottom right corner, I can grab that and change the size and shape of the form. I'm just going to make it quite wide and not too deep for the moment, and I'll resize that later so everything fits nicely. Alright, so what we want is, as you'll see over here, to have some text. First of all, the words what is, then this text box that I can write in, then this percent of, another text box, a question mark, then the word calculate on a button, and another text box. So let's build that up bit by bit. So as you're working in this, you'll see this little floating toolbox here. If that's not visible, then at the top of your screen where you have all these little icons, just to the left of the blue question mark, you'll have this little toolbox. Looks like a hammer for some reason. Hopefully you won't get to the point where you'll find that a hammer is your best method of fixing problems on the computer. But if you click toolbox, that will simply pop up again. Now I'm going to use 3 of these. The first one is the label, which is this big A here. So I'm going to draw a label out there, and then once I've selected that label, down here in the properties section, again it's caption. So we're going to click on caption and just change that to what is, the words what is, there we are. Now that's a bit small at the moment, but I'm not going to worry too much about changing the font, because I'll be changing the font of several boxes. So you'll see that on here we've got this font is quite large, that font will need to be big, so will that, so will that, so will that, and so will that. So I'm going to change all of those in one go. So next, after we've put the words what is, we want a text box. Now text box is this little white box here just after the label, has an A, B in it. Click on that and draw out your text box, and that's where the first number is going to go. Next we want to have that percent of. I could draw another label, or I could simply copy the label I've already got, paste that and put it just afterwards. Again, you can't click inside this to change the text, so with this selected we're going to come back down to the properties here and change the words what is to percent of. I can now make that label a little bit shorter. There we are. I know it looks a bit scruffy at the moment, but that doesn't really matter at this point at all. Next thing, we want a second text box. So I'm going to copy that text box, paste it and put it to the right. And then finally a question mark. So I'm going to copy that label, put that to the right, and then change the caption to a question mark. Now we need a button. So the button that says calculate, where's that? Well, that's under the label. So in your toolbox you have this A label, and underneath that you have a command button. I know command button and text box look quite similar. If you're not sure which is which, you can hover the mouse button over that one. You'll see that you'll get a little yellow tooltip which shows you. So command button, and then draw out that button. I want this text here to say calculate, so again come down to the properties, find caption and change that to calculate. And then the final thing that we need is to have another text box. This is where the answer is going to appear. We could have the answer appear in a label, but what I'd like is to be able to copy and paste the answer directly into Word. You can't copy the text from a label, but you can copy the text from a text box. Okay, so now we've got all of our different parts created. We don't need a toolbox anymore, but it's a bit scruffy at the moment. Everything's odd heights, and it's a little bit small, the font. So I'm going to select all of those. You'll notice I do that by clicking and dragging a frame over all of those parts. And I'm going to line them up first of all. So I'm going to go to Format, Align, and I'm going to align the middles. So now they're all pretty much the same alignment horizontally. but the font size is still way too small, so let's select all of these controls at the same time. The properties you'll see now looks different. The properties section will look different depending upon which type of control you're clicking. So if I select the label, you'll see I get those there. If I click text box, I get a much bigger list, and if I click button, again I get a different list again. But there are some common properties that apply to all of them. So when I select all of those controls, I see a list of all the properties that I can use that will affect all of them. And I want to go to font. Now click on font, you'll get this little dot 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 or ellipsis button, which I'm going to click on, and here I can choose the font. I'm not going to worry about changing the font itself. I'm just going to increase the font size to 14 and click OK. Now you'll see that it's not too bad, but we've got some bits cut off here. So I'm going to select those two controls and just shuffle them to the right a little bit so I can increase the width of that label there. Now of course you can spend as long as you want creating all of this to look really, really beautiful, make it look as wonderful as you like, but basically that's it as far as the controls concerned. We need to now add the code, and to add the code the first thing we'll need to do is to know the name of this text box, and this text box. Why do we need to know the name? Well, because we're going to write some code which will tell the computer to take this text box here, divide it by 100, multiply it by whatever is in this text box, and put the answer in this text box. Now that's fine because you and I are looking at the screen and I'm clicking on these and I'm saying this text box, and this text box, but that's no good. The computer needs to know exactly which text box it's supposed to be looking at. And it's really bad at being able to tell where you're pointing. So we have to give them names. They've actually already got names. We can find out what those are by clicking on a text box and looking again in the properties section. At the top we see name, and that says text box 1. I'm fine with that. I'm going to leave that exactly as it is, but you can change it if you want to. Just be aware that if you do change it, the name you use must obviously be really obvious and clear. It also must not have a space in it, and you shouldn't start it with a number. Other than that, go to town and name it whatever you like. Eric Porcupine, if you fancy. So we've got this text box as text box 1. This one, no surprises, it's called text box 2. And there are no prizes either for guessing what this one is. Yep, it's text box 3. So now we know what the names of the text boxes are. Let's click on the button because this is where the code is going to go. To write the code for the button, we double click it. And here again the window changes. This now is simply where we can write the code. You'll see that the code is enclosed within these two lines here. Sub is short for subroutine, which is basically another word for block of code. So we're going to write our code inside these two lines here. So I'm going to spread them out a little bit so we've got a bit more room to see what we're doing. But do make sure that the code you write occurs within these two lines. So the button 1 click subroutine and before the end of the subroutine. Now we only need one line of code in here and we're going to write it now. So we're going to say that text box 3 dot caption, so the sorry, not caption, dot text, beg pardon. So the text inside text box 3 is going to equal something. What is it going to equal? Well, it's going to equal whatever's in text box 2 divided by 100 first of all. So we'll do that operation in brackets. So we'll say now of course text box can contain text. We want to make sure that we're looking at the value of the text box, so what number value it is inside the text box. So I'm going to write the word val and then open brackets again and then say text box 2 dot text. So it is the value of what's in text box 2 divided by 100, and in code we use the / to mean divide. So we're dividing what's in text box 2 by 100 first of all, and then what we're doing is multiplying it by whatever's in text box 1. So we use the multiply sign, which is the asterisk, and then again it's the value of what's in text box 1 dot text. So there we are, that's our line of code. So the text box 3 text is going to be the value of what's in text box 2 divided by 100, and then multiply that by the value of what's in text box 1. We finished with our code now, so I can close this code window. Actually, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back to Developer and Visual Basic. We don't want to close the code window. What we want to do is go back to the user form. So on the left hand side, under normal, you will see your user form there. You've also got user form %. You won't have that. That's simply the user form which I used earlier on at the demonstration. So where you have user form 1, double click that, and that'll take you back to this window here. And really we're about done. I think one thing I will do, just to make this really clear what we're doing, is change the name of the form. You'll see that my original form was called user form %. So I'm going to change this form here from user form 1 to something that makes a little more sense. So making sure here that I'm not clicking on any one of these controls, that I click just on the form itself. I'm clicking somewhere on the background. In the properties section, you'll see name, it says user form 1. So I'm going to change that to demo form 1. There we are, demo form 1. So you can name this, and of course if you end up with lots of these forms, it's helpful if each one has a clearly identifiable name. So demo form 1, that's now done. So that's it for the form. We're done on the form, but there is one more thing that we need, because having a form is one thing, but we still need a line of code which will display the form, because at the moment it won't display the form. The button that you saw that I had on the right hand side of my ribbon here, that's % calculator, that button by itself can't actually display the form, but what it can do is run some code, and if that code runs the form or shows the form, then this button will effectively do that. It seems a little convoluted, but bear with me. So how do we do that? Well, what we're going to do is, again, making sure that we are right clicking on the word normal at the top, is we're going to insert a module. A module is simply a way in which we can add code to the document that's not within a form. So I had to double click on module 2, but you won't have to, because I've already got a module built in my code. So module 1 is the code that actually shows the original form. You can see how small that is, but I'm going to do everything from scratch. So whereas you'll have module 1, I've got module 2, so I'm going to double click that, and I can now write some code. What code do I need? Well, it's going to start with the word sub, and I'm going to give this subroutine or block of code a name, and I'm simply going to say show demo form. Now press enter. When I press enter, you'll see I get some empty brackets. Don't delete them, we need those in there, and we get the words end sub at the bottom. So now we can write our code inside here, and all we need is two things. First of all, we need to know the name of the form that we just created, which of course was demo form 1. So I'm going to write demo form 1, then I'm going to type a full stop, and then the word show, and that's it. Simple as that. So now I can click on that save button at the top, close this window, so I'm now back to Microsoft Word. So that form that we just created and the code that we wrote that shows that form is now stored within Microsoft Word. One problem though, we can't see it. So how do we create a button like this one over here which brings up the form we just created? Okay, so this final step then, we're going to right click on a blank area of the ribbon again, as we did to display the developer toolbar, and again we're going to click on customize the ribbon. Now it's up to you where you put your button, but it makes sense to me to have it in the home tab, because that's the tab that is most often visible. That's what I did here. I created a little section here called utilities. So what we're going to do on the right hand side is select the home tab here, and underneath you'll see all the different sections or categories We've got clipboard there, font, paragraph, styles and so forth. So you can see those displayed here. Utilities there won't be displayed because that's the one that I made, but I'm going to create a new one for this video. So to do that, what we're going to do is click on Home and then click New Group underneath. So now we have this new group. I'm going to click on that and click Rename. So I'm going to rename it. I'm going to rename it Demo. And then you can choose an icon as well. I've already got my calculator, so I'll choose something completely different. Let's choose this smiley face. Obviously you'll make a rather more informed choice than that, but this just is a demonstration. So once you've displayed the name, so that'll be whatever appears underneath here, and your symbol, whatever that might be, then click OK. And if we click OK again, you'll see that nothing really appears. It's a blank area at the top, but there's nothing actually inside that category. So we have to add something to the category. So back inside Customize, what I'm going to do, actually because I didn't add anything in there and I closed it, it's kind of got rid of that. So what I'll do is just go back in there, so New Group, Rename, Demo, Smiley Face, click OK. So now we select that demo category and we need to add something to it. On the left hand side, I'm going to change this from choose commands from popular commands to macros. And the macros will show, unless you've added others in, it'll just show one thing for you. What you're looking for is the name of that subroutine we created that displays our form, and that was show demo form. So I'm going to click on that and click add, and that now adds that to our custom section on our toolbar. So with this selected, I'm now going to rename that. So I'm going to show this, I'm going to just call that calculate percent. Doesn't really matter what you put, it's just whatever's going to be visible at the top. And again, I can choose an icon here. I'm going to choose the butterfly, click OK, and then finally click OK. So what you'll see now is at the top of the ribbon, we've got our demo category. We've got our item here called calculate percent with our logo or icon. And if I click on that, it displays the form which we created earlier on. So here we've got what is, and we can type in here 12% of 50, click calculate, and there we are, we've got the answer appearing in the text box on the right. So that's it. You can obviously continue with this. If you want to go back to that form, you'll just need to click on Developer, Visual Basic. If it's getting a bit crowded here like mine is, you can just reduce all that. Remember, it's in normal, so expand normal, and you'll have 3 folders, but you only want the forms and modules folders here really. If you expand forms, you'll see your form. So this user form percent is the one that I created earlier on. Demo form 1 is the one that you just saw me make just now. So if you want to continue changing this, you can do. Make your changes, click the save button, and it'll be saved automatically. And then the modules one, you probably won't need to go back into this module one. Once you've created that subroutine to display your form, nothing else needs to really take place there. But of course, if you want to add more forms to do more functions, then you'll just simply go back into module 2 and create more of these subroutines that display the appropriate form. And this is it, that's it. If we were to close this document here and go to File, New, and open up a new blank document, you'll see that the icons will remain there. So if you close Word and reopen it, it'll still be there. That is a fixed part of Microsoft Word now for all new documents based on the normal template. So I hope that was really useful to you. I hope I didn't rush too much. If you have any questions at all about this, please do leave a comment below. I do read all comments. I reply to them as soon as I possibly can. So if you need any more help or you've got any suggestions, then do let me know. If you liked the video and found that useful, please do click that like button. It warms the heart, it really does, and it does help the channel. So click the like button, please. And if you've not subscribed, don't forget to click that subscribe button as well. So thank you very much indeed for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.